Step off the floor. Okay. All right. So we have been, this is our third week, as Chris mentioned, of put your whole self in. We've been talking about heart, mind, and then this week's strength. And I thought, since it's the last week, I should probably just, so I lost the mic stopped working this morning. This is a different mic, and then the projectors are obviously going in and out. So it's a great tech morning around here. It's awesome, but you guys are used to that, so it's all good. I thought we should kind of just back up just for a second, okay? Before we talk about strength, and just look at why we're doing this at all, right? This, put your whole self in. I mean, I love this graphic. This is great. Thank you, Lindsay. It really kind of captures the feel of what we've been doing. And there's snow involved, right? But, other than that, so far, I mean, to my recollection, I don't think any of our messages have included like shepherds or wise men or angels. And we've talked about Jesus, but I don't remember talking about baby Jesus even, right? So you might be forgiven for thinking like, what does this series have to do with Christmas exactly, right? And that'd be a good question. And so, this is really the verse that we kind of keyed in on as we were talking about this December. This is in John 1:14. We've actually hit on this a number of times this year. The Word became flesh. The Word, Jesus, right? God, the Creator, became flesh and made his dwelling among us. And, really, that is the most summarized essence of what Christmas is. That God, he didn't, when he decided to come to us, this is the incarnation, right? That's the theological word. That when the Trinity sent Jesus down to earth, he didn't just like show up all of a sudden, fully formed, just appeared out of nowhere and be like, hey, I'm here now, He actually was sent as a baby, right? Born from a womb, with parents. And all the things that we've been kind of highlighting here, that he grew up. And so he became flesh in a very, very real way. And that, of course, is what Christmas is about. And what we have been talking about, how we've kind of framed this, is this statement here. It's because Jesus brought his whole self to us, all of his humanity, his whole self, we can bring our whole selves to God and to one another. And the way we've talked about that, of course, is in terms of heart, mind, and strength, okay? And so just a little bit more on heart, mind, and strength, right? We can think about those three things. And this is, this isn't to get into a whole dissertation about, what makes up a human and, disaggregating the parts of a person. We could talk about that for a long time. But it's just a simple way to think about, like, these are all parts of us. Every one of us has these things a part of us. And some of the ways we can think about that, heart, mind, and strength, is feeling, right? Heart is about feeling. Emily talked to us about our emotion, right? And then last week we thought about the mind and thinking or learning, the intellect. Bill brought us that message. And so this week we're thinking about doing, action. What do you actually accomplish physically? When you go to execute something, what does that look like? And so the strength is where we're at. And so I, of course, am going to be talking about that because, the other ones, I would venture to say for most of us, if you look at heart, mind, and strength, if you look at feeling, thinking, doing, or emotion, intellect, and action, you probably have, like me, there's probably one of those things that you might gravitate towards more than the others. Is that fair? And maybe there's another one that you tolerate, okay? But maybe only sort of for the sake of doing the one that you gravitate towards. And then maybe there's one more that you're like, yeah, I just really would like to pretend that didn't exist at all, right? Does anybody feel that way, right? Like for me, I am definitely a doer, okay? That's why I'm talking about this. I like to accomplish things. And, I do think, I have the ability, I have a brain, I have the ability to think, but I really only enjoy thinking, on any level if I know that it's going to result in some kind of doing, Like, that's the only reason. I just don't like sit around and contemplate things, like some of you thinkers do, right? Like, why are you thinking about that? No reason, Like, you would never catch me saying anything like that. That's why I became an engineer and a finance guy, right? So So, and then of course, there's the heart, right? The feelings, the emotion, and I must say that I have grown tremendously in that area, okay? Thanks to many of you, okay? Emily, in particular. So I've grown, but I start the day pretty much like Ben, like emotions are probably useless. I don't know if you realize they're not, but yeah, that's how I start the day, feeling like what is this emotion thing, right? So that's me. You might be different, right? It might be different things for you, and but that's how we kind of are wired differently. And that's okay, right? So when we talk about putting our whole selves in, what we mean is that, okay, well, if you've got these parts of yourself, however you want to think about it, maybe these aren't the 3 right words for you, but however you want to think about it, we think about, well, the things that we gravitate towards, the things that we're good at, let's give those to God. And the things that maybe are more neutral, let's give those to God too. And also the things that maybe you don't love as much, we'll give those to God too. How can we put our whole selves in? Because Jesus, of course, was all of those things, okay? But I'm a doer, right? I'm a doer. A lot of you are as well. And so we talked about putting your whole strength in. I just was like thinking about how much I enjoy even seeing things get done, right? And I was thinking about, actually, I almost missed the part of my slide I was most a fan of here. Okay, so feeling is a gift. Okay, to be able to feeling is a gift. Okay, I can assent to that. And thinking is beautiful. It really is. I do admire you guys who are thinkers. Bill, like I think every time Bill teaches, we should publish a book list along with it, right? So she's so well read. Many of you guys, you read. And you're so good at that, and you learn so many things. I saw a Nate Bargatze clip the other day. He's a comedian, and he was like, I don't read books. When I open them, I just feel like there are so many words in the books. And he's like, it's not because I don't buy them or think they're important. I just think there's a lot of words. I was like, yes, exactly. That is how I feel. So, so I admire you guys who can read and think. I think it is beautiful. But doing is awesome. It is awesome. That was as much enthusiasm as I could put on a PowerPoint slide. So, did you like it? Yeah. All right. It was startling. So. There you go. Doing is awesome. I enjoy doing. I enjoy watching things get done too. Lainey and I love this YouTube channel where they talk about big construction projects. And so I watch that a lot. There was one the other day on, this is the Changi Airport in Singapore. And that's like a 70-foot tall indoor waterfall, yes. It drains off of the roof and it pours down. It's incredible. It's very, very cool. All right, I'm going to keep going, sweetie. Okay. And there's a lot of plants. Too many plants. Okay. So, but besides big things and things I don't have anything to do with, I also like little things. This is my empty kitchen sink, okay? So day to day, right? I'm a little bit of a procrastinator, even though I love doing things. I still wait. And so most of the time, dishes are piling up on the left side, right? There's just dishes, and unfortunately, I'm a single dad with teenagers who's unfortunately not taught my children how to load the dishwasher yet. So I don't recommend that. You should teach them early. So you do. They do a lot of things, but not that. So dishes pile up on the left side, and when I get the chance then to finally do them and make that happen, it is just such a great feeling, right? Such a great feeling to get stuff done, even the little things on a day-to-day basis. It's so great, right? So if you're a doer, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You get this enjoyment out of just accomplishing things, right? About getting things done. It's awesome. And so that's throughout life, right? Big things, little things. Part of why my job works for me is because I actually have like one thing I've got to do every day. It doesn't take a ton of time, But I've got like one thing that I know if I didn't do anything else, if none of the projects got checked off, if I was floundering in some other areas, I was able to at least get this one thing done every single day, and it's just really helpful. I like it. And so being a doer, getting things done, is part of our humanity. And the thing we know about that is, of course, Jesus, he was a feeler, and he was a thinker, but he was also a doer, right? Jesus was a doer. He was the ultimate doer in so many ways. And, we think about the incarnation, and we think about the fact that he actually chose exactly when to come down to earth and in what context, right? He could have picked any time and place, but he chose exactly when and where to come to earth. And so I think actually he might have chosen that specifically because he was a doer. Think about Jesus in the context that he was born into. Like we can see, the Word became flesh. He made his dwelling among us. Like that's like also pretty literal. Like he had to make a dwelling. He was in a time and space. Here's a little map of Jesus coming into this region of the earth, right? The land of Israel. And one of the things that, for us, we take for granted is that just like transportation, right? Like, the Hoyts are here. Did you just fly or drive? You drove? Yeah, it's a long way. That's like, 800, 900 miles. We're about to do that the reversed way from Colorado, right? But like, really, that's a long distance you traverse. You guys probably flew, right? It's, But getting around even town, the whatever, 15 minutes or 10 minutes it might have taken you to, we just take it for granted, okay? Take it for granted that we can get around places. But Jesus specifically chose to be born into a time and place where they did not have cars or planes. And in fact, Jesus, it's only recorded twice that he ever even rode some sort of animal. The first time being, of course, the Christmas story, where in Mary's womb he rode a donkey, and then the second time in Palm Sunday when he rode into Jerusalem on, again, a donkey. Not a horse, even, a slow, plodding donkey. And so the rest of his entire life, as far as we know, he walked. He walked. And so, like right there, I don't think you can see it, it's too small, but there's a little picture from Nazareth, where he hung out, or Capernaum, which is even above that, to Jerusalem. It's about, I can't even read that. I think it says 65 miles, yes, from Nazareth to Jerusalem. He would have walked that very minimally once a year, probably more than that. So it's fair to say Jesus walked, like literally walked, like thousands of miles a year. Probably at least 2,000 miles a year. I think that's fair to say. He did a lot of walking, and he did that on purpose. He chose to do that, right? He could have been born into. I don't know if we're ever going to get like flying cars at some point or not. I don't know, but he could have been born into any period, but he chose to be born into that context. He also chose his occupation, what it is that he did for a living, right? You guys know that? You remember that, right? He didn't just show up on earth and start healing people. He actually, until he was 30 years old, he spent his full time growing up and then becoming what is commonly thought of in our translations as a carpenter, okay? But, actually, as I was looking at that this week, it turns out that carpenter is maybe not the best translation for that. Greek word was tekton, and really, it should probably be translated as builder. He was a builder, like a contractor, or like somebody who was able to construct houses. I've got a picture here. This is from Nazareth, from this place called the Nazareth Trust. And what you can see in there is stone, right? All the houses, they didn't have very little wood, but they had stone. So Jesus was probably working a lot with stone. And if you think about it in that way, go back through your Bible and look at all the stories he tells and the analogies and all that stuff, and you think about the fact that he worked with stone, most likely, a lot of those things all of a sudden make a lot more sense, that he was a builder. And so he chose an occupation that was physical, that required strength, that required getting stuff done day in and day out. He chose that. And then I think about, too, how Jesus, this is from this little screen grab from The Chosen. I know a lot of you are big fans. I grabbed this one in particular because this is from the feeding of the 5,000, okay? Just think about that miracle for a second. The goal is to feed all these people, okay? And you're going to do a miracle. You already know you're going to do a miracle, okay? But, he could have done that in so many ways, right? He could have just, made bread and fish, or maybe something else. I don't know. Just fall out of the sky, or just magically appear in everyone's hands, or in their pockets, or underneath whatever they're sitting on. But he didn't do that, right? I love how The Chosen shows it, right? Because the disciples all have to go and grab a basket from the crowd, and then they have to take the bread and the fish, and they have to distribute it through the baskets, and then they go and they pick up the basket. And when they go to pick up the basket, they can't. They're like, it's heavy all of a sudden, because that was the miracle, had been filled. But even after that, they have to go out physically, and they've got to pass it out. All 12 of them, going around passing out fish and loaves, right? He chose that method of doing it, this really physical thing that involves strength. Even though it was supernatural, obviously, there's a lot of it that wasn't, that was actually just doing. And I just find that to be fascinating. Jesus was a doer. He was a doer. He got things done in a human way. And, it says this at the end of John. We were just at the beginning of John. But this last verse of John I just love, because it says, Jesus did many other things as well. If every one of them were written down, I suppose that even the whole world would not have room for the books that would be written. He did many other things. And I just love that. I love that the Bible tells us about a lot of them, but there's a lot of them that he didn't. But here's the thing about Jesus, the doer. So while he did many things, I think it's also fair to say from a different angle that there was a lot of things he didn't do. In fact, maybe you could say that he didn't do anywhere close to the things that he could have done. I mean, you kind of think for a second, showed the map of his geographical location, right? The land of Israel, it's about the size of New Jersey. He never left. Physically, never left that time, that space. Never went anywhere else. The world was a big place. And, he interacted with a lot of people. Certainly, you'd see that in the Bible, and you could try to count them all up. How many people did Jesus, either teach or come face-to-face with, okay? And you just try to add all those people up. If you compared that to the number of people that lived on the earth, even at that exact time, it'd be like a fractional, infinitesimal amount of people, even on the earth that time. Not to say, not even to mention all the people throughout history. Right? Jesus only physically interacted in his time on earth with a tiny, tiny fraction of people, face to face. And then you just think about even his ministry. We just said, he was 30, right? All we know about Jesus was at his birth. We got this little snippet that Bill talked about last week where he's 12, and then the next thing you know, he's 30. And he only does his public ministry for 3 years. That's all he does. And so I think it's fair to say that Jesus, in some sense, he could have done more. He could have done more. There was a lot that wasn't there, and we even see this happening throughout the scriptures. Back in Chosen, one of the things that I love about The Chosen is the disciples will run around, and they'll be like, where'd Jesus go? We don't know where he is. We need him to do this thing over here. I thought he was going to be out. No, he's not over there. It's happens over. It's kind of like a running joke. And Jesus was always escaping. He was always going off and doing something else that wasn't what they wanted him to do. He was being with his Father. He was not doing. And so he chose that over and over again. And, for me, as a doer, this has been a long and revelatory lesson for me over the years. That Jesus, even though he was a doer, he did not do everything. And I remember coming in to this church when I was a college student. I was, definitely high-achieving, overachieving type of personality. And I came in, and over again, I heard David Stark preach out of this, also out of John 5, where Jesus said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, the Son can do nothing of his own accord, but only what he sees the Father doing, for whatever the Father does, that the Son does likewise. That the Son, that Jesus only did what he saw the Father doing, which meant that he didn't do everything. And I was like, oh, really? That's like, I don't know. There's so many things that I just want to do, right? So many things out there. If I made a list, it's like, it'd be endless. And yet, what we see here is Scripture that Jesus had the capability, but he did not. He just did what he saw the Father doing. And so, when we talk about putting our whole selves in, putting our whole strength in, what does that look like? I just felt like it would be important to note that, right? Let me stop for a second. The lesson in that, right? The thing that I think that the Lord maybe wants us to hear, especially here in our busy December, and as we head into the new year as well, right? Is that God, for us doers especially, that God has things that he wants us to do. It's true. But he also has things that he doesn't want us to do. And whether or not we can kind of navigate what those things are and aren't, that's what really giving our whole selves to him looks like. And for you guys who are maybe less doers, and that's okay too. Sometimes in our culture, we like to shame you not doers, I acknowledge that. Get off your lazy bum, do something, right? It's like, it's okay, we get it, all right? That's just not how you're wired as much. It's okay too, but you have the same opportunity. You have the same opportunity to be able to submit that to God. It's like, you actually do have some strength. You have the ability to act. And what is it that God would be leading you to do, to act on? Let me just close with this real quick. Something I've just been learning is that it turns out in all my doing, my doerness, turns out that something that I struggle with a lot is impatience. I want everything to be done right now. I don't like to wait for other people to do them either, because they might do it slower or better than I would do it. And so I'm impatient, and I know I do a good job. Sometimes I do a good job of masking it, but that's what's going on all the time. And as the Lord's been showing me that, I think he's been showing me that it's not only just a thing that kind of gets me wrapped around the axle a little bit, right? Like when I'm being impatient. But it's something that actually can prevent the things that he's trying to do. We're in the midst of this transition as a church, just to give you one example, and we're trying to learn different ways of doing things here. And that's been one of the things that is often most challenging, is because instead of just going and doing the stuff that I think would be reasonable and helpful to do and smart to do, we have to exercise some patience. And we have to wait on the Lord to actually show us what it is that we're supposed to be doing and not doing. And that has been a huge challenge. But it's been good. It's been really good because the Lord shows up in that. He shows up in that patience. He shows up to us in all of his fullness, all of his whole heart and his mind and his doing. And it's a beautiful thing. And so here's the invitation. And I want to just spend a little minute here. That top one there is just kind of something. It's just kind of a check, okay? And I'll bring the worship team up in just a minute. You guys can hang for a second. It's just put your whole self in by valuing all parts of our humanity, right? All parts of it, equally in yourself and in the community. So that's just kind of a good overall check. Just kind of thinking about that a little bit. Is there parts of yourself either, or the way that you see other people, that you maybe dismiss a little bit more because it's not your thing? And then as it relates to strength, I want you to ask God for guidance and motivation for the things he is calling you to do. In the same parentheses there, that give God your doing. That's what I would encourage you to do, especially in this season. Give God your doing. And then also ask God for patience and faith for the things he is not asking you to do, right? And you could think about this as less assuming, less assuming that you know what you should and shouldn't do, and more asking, more talking to Jesus about what it is that he's asking for.